An electric SUV with a large boot, a good price, easy to use. How about the SsangYong Korando E-Motion? This episode is brought to you by Carvago. Be smart, choose your car online with Carvago. SsangYong is a Korean conglomerate that we in Europe probably remember since the appearance of the Musso SUV in the 1990s. At the time, SsangYong entered a technological partnership with Daimler, the fruits of which it reaped for years in various models, including the German limousine, also known under the Daewoo brand, or the second-generation Korando, which was even briefly produced in Poland, also under the Daewoo brand. The Korando started out as an off-roader, and if you were drunk, short-sighted, and the car was parked in a dark alley, you could have mistaken it for a Jeep. But in the third generation, in line with the prevailing fad, it turned into a crossover. In the fourth generation, this trend continues. The fourth generation SsangYong Korando made its debut at the 2019 Geneva Motor Show, the last Geneva Motor Show as we know it because the pandemic, and now the Geneva Motor Show is to be held in Qatar, which makes perfect sense, right? The engine range was a 1.5-litre turbo petrol and a 1.6-litre diesel with optional all-wheel drive and an optional AISIN 6-speed automatic. If that sounds familiar, it's probably because the same can be ordered in the SsangYong Tivoli. But SsangYong also had an all-electric Korando up its sleeve, a model called the Korando E-Motion. The main differences from the combustion engine variant are the mostly covered fascia, as a small intake under the bumper is sufficient for cooling. There is also a charging port on the front left wing, and there is an additional E-Motion badge on the front and in the rear. And that's about it. Under the bonnet, a 190 horsepower electric motor has replaced the internal combustion engine. Now, this is slightly less powerful than the Kia Niro EV, but more powerful than the Peugeot E2008 or the entry-level Volkswagen ID.4. Unfortunately, SsangYong has followed in the tracks of Volkswagen and Peugeot and did not install a frunk under the bonnet, as, for example, in a Kia. Why a frunk, you ask? Well, on a rainy day, you don't want to pack a wet cable into a dry and clean boot or passenger footwell, and you need to carry some sort of a cable with you. For example, not all AC charging posts come with their own cable.
Looking for a car for family, fun or work? Carvago.com is the place for you. Carvago is a modern platform with vetted cars from all over Europe. You can buy a car from the comfort of your home and Carvago will deliver it to your doorstep. Carvago.com features more than 700,000 cars from vetted dealers across Europe. You select a car on Carvago. Carvago sends out its experts and presents you with Car Audit, a full report on the actual condition of the car. Car Audit keeps track of 270 technical points, includes photos as well as final evaluation by a Carvago certified technician. Next, you simply select financing and delivery options, you sign a deal with Carvago, and Carvago buys the vetted car for you. You have 14 days after delivery to test drive and return the car without giving a reason. The price also includes up to 12 months warranty depending on the region. So, what's your car from Carvago going to be like?
The Korando E-Motion is slightly larger than the Kia Niro EV and quite a bit smaller than the VW ID.4, although SsangYong has the largest boot, at least on paper. Now, the car maker claims this is 551 liters, if I can open it, but according to my measurements, it's 100 liters less at best, and that's after removing this kind of styrofoam insert with a repair kit from under the floor. So realistically, the boot capacity is somewhere between the Kia Niro EV and the Peugeot E2008.
There are shopping bag hooks. The two-piece double floor makes for a good luggage arrangement system, although I get the impression that someone had the measurements wrong and the floor could fit better in the lower position. Well, at least the cargo cover fits under the floor. The boot finish around the backrests is... Now, here I wanted to make this joke that it's on par with Ford Mondeo Vignale,
but actually it's better. So you can tell the Koreans have not only followed the best European trends, but actually exceeded them. In the rear, the legroom and headroom are generous, I would say. The side seats are heated. The door pockets are quite big. There are cup holders in the armrest. However, missing is a ski hatch. There are also no air vents, but there is a 220 volt socket. The doors cover the sills, but the welds on the doors... There's this YouTube channel where a Russian bloke repairs cars that initially look like a bus stop, and he welds pretty well. Maybe SsangYong could hire him to program their robots. Up front we are greeted with virtual instrument binnacle and acres of piano black plastic. On the plus side, the instruments are easy to read and everything is controlled with buttons and dials, and they're arranged logically around the cockpit. On the downside, some of the switches on the steering wheel stick out just a few millimeters too much, so when you're kind of turning the wheel you can brush against them during parking maneuvers with your hand or maybe with a cuff of your jacket. The infotainment system is, well, most importantly, it supports Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The latter, I'm sure, is still only wired, but the important thing is that it's there, even if it lags a bit. For reasons unknown to me, the navigation always starts in two-dimensional mode with orientation north on top. I remember something like this from Toyota a few years ago. I looked in the settings but found nothing to permanently save the preferred map display mode. On the other hand, it makes no difference if you can use other maps. Unless you're planning a route and then maybe you'd like to display chargers along the route, it can be done, but it might be better to use something like a better route planner. More on charging and range in a moment when we hit the road. Meanwhile, SsangYong has managed to design interior of a modern crossover with one USB port, and it's a USB-A port at that, and there's only one cubby for your stuff with hard plastic, so your keys and coins will rattle in there. If you place something on a smartphone cradle with wireless charging, it'll beep to indicate that there is a foreign object inside. Fortunately, there is still a large storage compartment under the armrest, which is sliding, and the glove box is so deep you can probably put your head and shoulders in there. And then there are door pockets, also quite commodious. The position behind the wheel is for rather short people, I'd say. The Korando is the first car in which I had to put the seatbelts in the highest position. Normally I lower them as low as they go, so they don't cut my neck. But here, in the lowest position, I have to pull them up and they lock up. I'm 175 centimeters tall and I have to extend the headrest upwards. This is also rather new to me. The seat is just about okay in terms of length. The seat length is not adjustable. The lumbar support is adjustable for the driver only. Electric seats are an option, but there are no memory settings like in Hyundai and Kia a few years ago. Anna is 160 centimeters tall. She also needs to have the seatbelts adjusted higher. She is able to get the seat and steering wheel in a correct position, but the seatbelt buckle presses hard against her hip. This is the first time she has encountered something like this. We suspect that the buckle attachment is extremely stiff and high, hence such a problem. It's time to talk about performance, range and charging. SsangYong provides only some data and it can vary between the specifications available on the Polish, German, Belgian and Korean websites and what the Polish brand representative has said in an email. So I'll just tell you what I know, but don't take my word for it. SsangYong doesn't provide a 0 to 100 km per hour time for the Korando e-Motion. I'm assuming you're not buying an electric crossover from a niche, by European standards, Korean brand, expecting super acceleration, but in my tests it did a respectable 8.5 seconds. That's as quick as a Volkswagen ID.4 with a 204 horsepower motor. But don't accelerate too much, because firstly, above 100 km per hour, the wind noise starts to be noticeable, and secondly, the range drops dramatically. The Korando e-Motion has a battery capacity of 61.5 kilowatt hours, most likely gross, most likely 56 kilowatt hours net. SsangYong's claimed range consumption is 16.8 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. I got high 17s in the city, but as the consumption meter automatically resets itself every time the vehicle is turned off, I cannot give you a reliable long-term consumption figure. I estimate that in the city, under optimum conditions, it is possible to get it down to just under 17 kilowatt hours as promised. Extra urban, expect 20-ish kilowatt hours and even more on the motorway. This means that even the promised range of 339 kilometers combined is difficult to achieve. 474 kilometers in the urban cycle is probably just rolling in traffic. The lack of radar-based recuperation doesn't help. There is a 3-stage region controlled by the paddles on the steering wheel, but there is no option to turn it off completely.
The 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger will top up the battery in about 11 hours, provided you have a sufficiently powerful outlet at home. DC charging is most likely to peak at 80 kilowatts, although there is a chart on the Fastnet website showing a 75 kilowatt peak. Charging at that level lasts to more than 60% and drops below 50 kilowatts at 75% state of charge. And no, the specification doesn't say that the Korando e-Motion takes up to 100 kilowatts, just that it takes 33 minutes to charge from a 100 kilowatt charging station to 80%.
So on the motorway, expect a charging stop every 150-200 kilometers. This is unlikely to be your favorite road trip car, and that's a shame because radar cruise control and lane keeping assist, they work quite well. But okay, they also work in traffic, so it's a bit of a relief when you're crawling to work in the morning. The Korando e-Motion can tow trailers up to 1.5 tons, and that bit of data seems to be the same in all sources. It's also probably the best result in the segment. Less reliable is the information about the ground clearance, which is from just over 16 to almost 17 centimeters, depending on the source.
Other than that, the Korando is unobtrusive. It drives, it accelerates, it brakes. By the way, the handover from region to friction braking is very smooth. The blind spot monitoring system is pretty loud and somewhat annoying, just like in Hyundai and Kia, but it's not a deal breaker and you can always turn it off. Prices for the SsangYong Korando e-Motion start at 40,490 euro. This is the top trim model and it costs 47,090 euro.
The closest Korando e-Motion rivals are the Kia Niro EV, longer range, higher price, the Peugeot E2008, similar range, lower price, possibly the Citroën EC4 with similar specifications to the Peugeot, and the Volkswagen ID4, longer range, higher price. Now, the SsangYong is the relatively easy to use choice and it has the greatest towing capacity, although I don't know if this will be the deciding argument bearing in mind the relatively short range. And what do you think about the SsangYong Korando e-Motion? Let me know in the comment section below.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.